of our thought and our ability to kind of handle what's coming at us. It's like, well, if you get annihilated by a stone a couple times, you're going to be a little sharper. So it's like kind of, we're a little sharper maybe in this moment. And just, so many people are hurting so much. So it's like, yeah, we don't need to add fuel to the fire, I think. Right now it's about kind of like, okay, how can we kind of like soften and listen to each other? And
yeah, as a as an educator and somebody who's kind of taught history for a number of years, I've always kind of felt I've been detached. I've always looked at myself in my own historical context, and kind of like you were saying, Cass, where it's a privilege to live in interesting times. I wish I wasn't analyzing it so much and I was kind of just feeling it more. But in that sense, I'm also kind of, I really want to know why these people feel this way and kind of what they're thinking. So I don't know, I always kind of take that step back and hold space, and I go, okay, somebody could be sitting in front of a painting in a gallery and I'll explain to them, why it's pertinent, whether they like it or not, and kind of seeing the wheels turn that I can do, like I can explain that to them. And in this context, historically, I don't know that much. I know some, like I know my history, but I'm also kind of like, well, what perspective are they taking that they're feeling this way? And how can I kind of engage without just having like a negated conversation? So it's kind of it's an interesting thing to live through these times where you're kind of like, I can't understand how people feel this way, but I want to, I want to know why, So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting moment. And that goes into surfing where like you're sitting on a lineup with very different people, and what's going on. So I don't know.
It's yeah, all these kind of things. It's like, how do you kind of like hope to hear and understand somebody from like a heart space and like why their thoughts or feelings are such? And it's also kind of like, well, what are some of the things that are causing this at the end of the day? Like us as humans, like just as us as surfers, we all want to ride waves and have good feelings on a surfboard. And it's like, okay, well, this board gives you this kind of feeling, or this wave does, and this is kind of what you're looking for. So like, what are you looking for from surfing? It's like, I want to have a good time. I want to have joy, ride a cool wave, see a beautiful sunset. Sometimes it's just about being in the water. And like, for me, like feeling and smelling the ocean, smelling the water, like feeling the energy of everything moving. And I think sometimes for like what's going on right now, like a lot of people are in places of like fear, like a lot of, I think personally, like it comes from places of fear, and it comes from like a deep rooted survival instinct, which like I'm really interested in energy medicine. That's primal energy, and survival is like really kind of like our root chakra, and the root chakra has had us flee from saber-toothed tigers, and we don't have to do that anymore. And so it's like kind of like, okay, and if we're still reacting to things from that place, it is a react place. And then when we come up to the heart, it's more of kind of like, oh, I can hear you. I get it. It's getting out minutia of the details. I think like what you were saying, Kirsten, is like an opportunity to kind of pull back and see like the bigger vantage. Your name on there says, yeah, Kirsten.
That's my wife. She does yoga on this account. And we use
okay. Because I was like reading your name. I was like, I don't think that's your name, but it's differently.
Wow. That's a really.
I was like, it's a different spelling from like a different. Yeah, I was confused Norwegian? About that one.
I am Norwegian.
Yeah, fully.
Name. Actually, Kirsten is Chris, I think, in Scandinavian, the female like version of it. I don't know, but like I married a woman with that name.
You married Chris and Chris, and you do a show with Chris and Chris. So there you go. You're just destined to be around other Chris's.
Destined to do it, yeah.
Chris's and Kassias, maybe.
It's true. I think it was different spelling. Like I thought it was like some like your European spelling of, I was like, okay.
It was some pretentious spelling.
Yeah.
Hey, Kassia, I'm really curious. Like, how did you get into energy medicine, and how long have you been practicing? And can you give our listeners a little bit of background on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like everything is energy, really. There was a number of things that brought me to it. In 2011, I got introduced to vibrational medicine, so sound essentially. And the first time I received a sound bath, I felt like I was surfing, truly. And I was like, this guy I met, and we were with a group of us, and we were like on a photo shoot, and we got out early and we went to this place, and it was like super wild. It was actually the Integratron, which is now this, like, you can't even get a reservation. But like, you know, this was in 2008 that we were out there. And so it was like a Saturday or Sunday and nobody was there. And we rolled up and, you know, he introduced us to it. And then, so, you know, 3 years later, 2011 comes around, I'm like walking down the street and I see like a giant crystal bowl in one of these shops. And I was like, wait, that's that thing that guy was playing a couple years ago. And I like go in the store and I just start like playing with it. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, can I buy this and take it home? And so I brought it home and I was like sticking my head in it and hitting it and just like having such sweet feelings with it. And then from there, we kind of like started a whole performance art group and started playing shows and started doing all this stuff all over the place. We made vinyls. We made a vinyl with Oh Wow Gallery. We did a documentary with the Nowness at the Integratron years later. And then a couple of the people that I was like in this group with, they were musicians. Everybody kind of went off their way. And me and one of the other gentlemen were like interested in the healing elements. Cause at that time it was more so of like a performance art piece. Like we'd play at Milk Studios for like an art thing. Like it was kind of like something like that more so.
Was that in New York or out in LA?
Out in LA at Milk. Yeah. Years ago. I mean, this was like 2011, 2012. Yeah. I even actually got flown to New York to play during Fashion Week in 2012.
How cool is that?
It was pretty radical. I mean, it was definitely a journey going through it that way. And then I had a series of concussions. I started getting craniosacral treatments. We started performing sound baths more in healing spaces, me and one of the other gentlemen. I studied with different sound practitioners. I actually am a licensed craniosacral therapist now, and I'm getting my AP associate polarity practitioner. So I've been in school for years. And so I work on clients. That's something that I do, and both with sound and craniosacral therapy.
Well, what's interesting is technically you're kind of surfing because it's sound waves. So you're just riding a different wave, basically.
And energy waves. Yeah. It's all different waves. I mean, everything is energy. Everything is light. Like when you get to the quantum, you know, realm of things, everything is light and sound is light. And just like words have a wave to them and an intention and a vibration, it's like essentially that same sort of, you know, the same sort of principles and energetics and science in that kind of like space. So it's pretty radical. Like I definitely, I mean, it's really what surfing is in a different form for sure.
That is freaking cool. I mean, I've always been really interested in that. So just to hear someone who, you know, who's been experiencing it, like I think there's a lot to explore and learn from it. And I'm curious, like if there like studies have been done on it as well. I'd love to see. Yeah, like the sound therapy and everything.
Oh, so many people. Yeah, there's like a bunch of, you know, different people who have been studying this for years and years and years. And there's like documented like specific frequencies that are aligned with like different organs and different kind of like harmonic resonances that when you attune things to through bioresonance, it actually kind of like brings like homeostasis and harmony back to things. They've even like developed a machine, like the Rife machine, and different kind of like basically using different frequencies that can like basically explode cancer cells or bring the body back to homeostasis or potentially bring harmony back to organs. And so, the Rife machine was kind of in and around the 70s. And now obviously our technology is way different than the 70s. So there's things like the amp coil, which take kind of like sound and and actually, I mean, the creators of it actually created it because they had Lyme disease. Actually, it detoxes Lyme disease out of you, certain vibrational codes.
I'll have to look into that. I had it pretty bad.
Yeah, it's called
amp coil.
You had Lyme?
Yeah,
Chris, you had
I had
Lyme?
like Bell's palsy for a year from Lyme.
Holy damn.
Growing up on
Heavy.
Long Island, yeah, that
Yeah.
happened.
Well, yeah, Long Island, Pine Barrens, look out.
Yeah.
You
Roll
know
around
what's
some
so
it.
funny?
dunes on High Island, you're gonna get Lyme's disease.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so funny. You're sitting here. You're going to ask Kassia, like, what can I do with sound therapy to like solve my Lyme disease? I'm going to ask her, like, I got blown up in a car accident like 3 years ago, and my concussive symptoms were out of control. So this is turning into something really different than something more than we.
Paid for
This is
this.
Ask Kassia show right here on health and wellness. Didn't you know
Turn
that?
into a house show.
No, absolutely. I mean, I can give you both some definite information. I mean, they definitely have different kind of sound programs, and through the amp coil, they can actually really help with everything from kind of like physical ailments. Actually, there's like even different kind of like brain harmonizing frequencies for, some of the concussive symptoms, which is also why I got into craniosacral therapy. And then also with like Bell's palsy and Lyme and everything like that, like they created this device. Like I work with sound in like a kind of like broader way, and I have an amp coil. So when people come to me to get a session, and if they have something very specific, we bring the amp coil into it as well. So there's just kind of more with this time. There's so many different ways to bring harmony to our system, which is like, what an amazing time to live in. We just have so much at our fingertips that literally you can have. It's like this briefcase that you carry around with you. It's quite an expensive machine, that said, and also like our own voices are true healing devices. And just by like toning and humming, we can bring the autonomic nervous system into homeostasis, which the AS, like that controls our whole body system.
Yeah.
I was introduced to this stuff back in London a number of years ago. My roommate was from Japan. His name was Tomo, and he was doing field recordings of like glaciers cracking. And he would just sit there and meditate on these things for like hours in the middle of the night, so he wouldn't hear anything else, any like static noise or anything, and he or ambient noise. And I had no idea what he was doing till a couple of years later, and he like published his PhD, and I was like, oh, that's amazing what you're actually doing with that. And it was, it's pretty cool. So I had no idea at the time, but
it's interesting, Kassia, like how your career has, gone on this incredible path. Like, I mean, if you were to like talk to yourself when you're about 17, just about to star in The Seedling, like, and would tell that younger version of yourself where you're going, where you are, like, would you believe yourself?
I guess, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about that. And truly, I think too, it's like when I was 17 and I was in The Seedling and all of a sudden started traveling, would I have been able to kind of tell my 13-year-old self that I was going to do that?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think getting into surfing just really got me to all intuition and instinct everywhere. And so I was never really thinking about where I was going. I was just kind of following what felt. And I think that's something that I think we all have in common as surfers. It's like surfing a tool that really refines your intuition. It refines that gut. You're just like, all of a sudden wind blows one way. You're like, I think it's going to be really good tomorrow. People are like, what are you talking about? You're like, I don't know. I just got that feeling, So it's interesting where life leads you.
Yeah. So where are you calling home right now?
So I live in Culver City,
Okay.
Los Angeles. So yeah, it's kind of like close to the beach, close to El Segundo, close to Venice, close to not very good waves. And then kind of not so far away is some really good waves, some like world-class waves. That said, it's cool because I'm like in between, like I'm right off the freeway. So I can be like down south in an hour and a half or up north in an hour and a half. And then between Malibu and Topanga and some of the other point breaks, it's like 35, 40 minutes.
It's nice to know somebody else has to travel for good surf, right, Chris?
Where are you guys all out of? Where's everybody over there out of specifically? Like, are you all East Coast? Are you all out in New York?
Yeah.
And okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
It's funny, like all of us at one time were all like based in New York City, and we're out of Brooklyn or New York, mostly Brooklyn or New York City. We were traveling out into the Rockaways, and all of us are Long Island based. We grew up on the island, so pretty much if you know you want to call home, it's